You're advertising now. Yeah, like the advertising. For the army? Because you change your books, man. Advertising for the army. Fixing the cameras, checking the audio. Almost ready to go. You have a phone call? No, Mike. That's going to be public. No, the mic is not. The mic on. You came on mute. No time to mute. The red light on. Is it a button on? Change the color. Yeah, I don't know that. Oh, man. I gotta throw you in. You fix it back. Hello. Our Podbean family, y'all rocking out, listening to this instrumental. We're just trying to get the audio going on all platforms at the moment. YouTube's up and running. IG will be up shortly. Oh yeah. I'm excited. We have another great show. We're going to be talking a lot about current events, things that are taking place. Every day it seems like there's something crazy going on in this country. Every day. So it's always plenty to talk about in the news. I'm ready to get started. Camera's doing nothing, man. Let me do it. I'm just some dead air time. No, they can hear it. You got music. You might turn it on. You got music. You come here to listen to music. We're coming. We have some video challenges, man. About 2 seconds. Let me get the camera. And it's coming up now. Right now it's searching. Like a robot. It's AI, man. Now when I come. They was waiting for Devin. You want me to try to plug it again? Well, I did that. And I don't want to camera. I must have missed the start again. This is about it.
That's our longest intro, man. You're live for another episode of Above Average Black Men. Yours truly, Chris Bender Sr.
Chris Jr., here to empower, inspire, uplift the community. And I think today's going to be another great one. Devin is going to be here joining us shortly. But again, great host and list of topics. Like, follow, subscribe, share, comment. Get with us, interact with us. That's what makes the show great. I feel like a lot of times we have people that join kind of in the middle or halfway through. Certainly appreciate that. If you're watching this after the show actually airs, you can still interact and comment and do those things. We'll take a look at it. We'll respond. Who knows, we may respond in the next episode. So let's get started.
Here we can start. I don't apologize to our Facebook listeners, man. We kind of seem to have some technical difficulties here.
So you know it's going to be a good show.
Yeah, I know. Every time we get a hot topic, man, it goes. For some reason, we don't have sound on Facebook, man. However, we have it everywhere else on YouTube. We have it on Podbean. So we're live on other formats. Facebook, for some reason, we just have the video. So I don't know. Maybe the sound's going to click on us at some point.
Yep. But nonetheless, let's get started. I think.
Well, we're here, man. So you can lead us off with your hot topic.
I know. So one thing I wanted to talk about that, I know we have a range of things that we want to talk about. Probably some lighter, fun things towards the end. But one thing that, we mentioned a reference before getting started today was Florida raising lowering the age for kids to work. And I'm interested in really having that conversation with you about that. Just because, I don't know, I feel like it may be some mixed feelings here coming from me. And then also I think what's kind of funny or a joke I've heard is like they got rid of all of the kind of the brown people and now they're trying to get kids to work and replace them. So I just like, it's interesting, I think where my feelings are towards it, but I want to hear what you have to say about the idea of lowering the age for kids to work.
Well, I mean, I think we got to think long term. It's funny because I was talking to some students about this on Tuesday. They don't see the big picture. Whenever you move a labor force, you have to replace it. There's certain things you can't replace with technology. So you're not going to have machines go pick mushrooms. You're not going to have machines go pick strawberries, pick avocados. It's not going to happen. At least they haven't been invented yet. So they got to replace the workforce. How do you replace the workforce with the next group of brown people? Mm-hmm. You deport all these people, which I didn't think about. So now what's going to happen is they used to have something called the chain gang. And I was told they still have it in Mississippi. Don't know if it's true or not. But chain gangs, prison workers used to go out and work the fields. They got up every day. They ate breakfast. They went out. They worked the field. They had lunch. That was their job. And so it was really free labor. That was they sentenced to be in jail. Mm-hmm. So I think that's one way they're going to replace it. I think another way they're going to replace it. What's going to happen? Has already happened in the economic structure we have. All those people being laid off with these degrees, these high degrees from government, different places, they have to take jobs. So when they take jobs, those people applying for those jobs won't have the opportunity to get pushed down. So everybody's going to get pushed down. So it's going to be hard to walk ahead and walk over to Walmart now because Walmart's going to have a choice of employees now and just get a job with no skill. So what are you going to do? And for our youth who don't pay attention to do silly things, you're going to be committing crimes to put yourself in a position. You're going to be the new labor. And then educationally it's going to have an impact because some kids are going to drop out of school to make that money.
Yes.
And it's not a lot of money. They think it's a lot of money because you live in a home, your mom is paying bills, but you're out there making minimum wage. You're not buying a Beamer.
No.
You're not, and then you got to work when it's 110 degrees outside. So I think that's going to take a large group of people out of the educational system, which now is going to broaden the poverty. That group that's in poverty, man, is going to be immersed in poverty, and it's not going to be a way out.
Yeah, I mean, I might have a little bit of a different take on it. I'm like, man, put these kids to work, man. They need something to do. Maybe don't let them work during school hours. Prohibit them from working hours in which they would be in school.
You got to pick during the day.
Be like, yeah.
You can't pick at night.
What you mean, pick what? Oh, they just saying in general and like working.
Yeah, but that's the field they're gonna. Nobody from Comcast is gonna be hiring a 14-year-old.
I mean, but they will at McDonald's or
Yeah, but those jobs are gonna be taken, Chris. It's only so many people who work at McDonald's.
I think one thing that probably might be a little overlooked here is like, look at some of these people working at McDonald's and Wendy's right now. They can be replaced by a 13-year-old. Like, I'm just saying.
But again,
some of those 13-year-olds might be a little bit more customer service friendly.
You brought in that whole poverty group. It gets enlarged because now you got 14-year-olds who are not really making enough money to make it. They make, they hustling. They make enough just to get by because they living at home, but they in a poverty level. Then you supply and demand. To your point, you are right. So how many of those older people are going to lose their jobs? That income may be supporting their families.
Listen, so, I look at it as like competition might make the market better.
Not with a 14-year-old though. 14-year-old.
If this younger person coming in here doing a better job than me,
yeah, but it's not just about a 14-year-old unless they have a parent. A parent is going to talk sense to them. Is going to think making minimum wage for 8 hours a day for 40 hours a week is going to make them a lot of money, and it's not. When you got to start paying your bills.
For some, they doing all types of things to get that at that age anyway. Yeah, that might be a better,
but you're not talking about that population. You're talking about the population who need to be in school. Who, if they were doing that, they wouldn't go to school. You're going to see more and more people drop out to work. If you look for, and some of them, their parents are going to make them do it because the parents they need help with income in the house. I'm not here to say what is right or wrong. I just told you the long-term effect is not as simple as 14-year-olds working. It's going to have a domino effect.
Yeah, I mean, it certainly will in some capacities or ways, but I think it don't all have to be like a negative, like in terms of like some of those effects.
But the negative impacts are going to be generational. You talking to Chris?
I mean, some of the positives could be generational too. Like this
young person,
this person. You hear stories sometimes now where it's like my dad or grandma, blah, blah, they worked so and so, and they taught me how to work, and like it's. I think it could be a mindset change or shift for some people.
But economically, it's going to just increase that whole class of poor people is going to grow. It's going to be increased because you're not going to. Could you make it? Could you make it off minimum wage? No, that's what I'm saying. So now you're not going to leave home.
But I think on the other hand of that, you're learning the value of money and work at an earlier age versus like for some of these people, they don't never see it until.
You learn the value of money at 14 years of age. Most of them are not going to go back to school, so they're going to be illiterate. Some of them, I know, some of them are illiterate now and they're in school. So I'm just saying. So
at least give them a job, a trade, a
skill. So you think the average youth and around here is going to take their job working on a farm and keep it?
I mean, I'm not even saying the idea of just working on a farm.
But Chris, if you think they're going,
we don't have no farms up here.
But Chris, do you think you have farms out in the county where we live at?
Mm-hmm.
So you think Comcast is not hiring a 14-year-old? The only job is going. But I'm saying the only jobs going to be available is the labor force they're trying to replace, and that's the ones that the people are deporting. Those jobs are open. Those are jobs they're looking to replace.
I don't think that's necessarily true.
It is true
because we just named like McDonald's and Wendy's, all these fast
but they're not thinking about McDonald's and Wendy's. They're trying to figure out how to get these crops picked. That's why they're not doing it. They're not thinking like you think for money. They're trying to figure out, these farmers.
I think it's gonna be hard for them to be like, hey kids, you can only work these jobs on the farm.
It's not going to be hard, Chris, because that's the only jobs. That's the job that's going to be available.
So you think McDonald's? Nobody's going to sign up for that.
What's that take? You missed the point. It's not going to be about signing up. You're going to see change. You're going to see people in orange jumpsuits out there. They're going to be out there.
So they're going to have 13-year-old kids on a chain gang?
If they go to jail, they can use study center. They have to work. If they in jail, they're going to have to, Chris, you're going to have to replace the labor force. You can say what you want to say. You're going to have to replace the labor force. That's the one thing that this administration didn't think about. Farmers are saying,
to be out here like China.
Farmers are already saying, if the trend continues, we're going to be out of business because they keep losing people either through deportation or people afraid because they don't want to get deported. So somebody got to pick now. How's supply and demand? We want to pay more because the supply is going to shrink. So food. So you think it's a food desert in the hood? Now it's going to be a real food desert because they're not going to be able to afford it. And it'd be different if they said, okay, we took some of these 14-year-olds and we put them in some work study programs where they could get a future. That'd be different, But the jobs are going to be available to them Like McDonald's is not a career job if you're not trying to get an education. You're still interested in poverty. If you're not trying to do something to get better, that's not a job a 14-year-old, the average 14-year-old, should want to work for 20 years, for 30 years.
Mm-hmm. But I feel like it's just kind of like, I mean,
but you don't have an education though. Because you dropped out of school. You missed the first. What we're talking about is Florida's lowering the age of the work. So now you have kids dropping out of school to work. And now I'm not going to make smart choices and get. They thinking I'm gonna have some money in my pocket, not realizing I can't live. Eventually I'm gonna be on my own.
The kids do that now.
But they're not at 14.
They dropping out of school.
No, yeah, but you're missing the point. That number's going to grow.
And to do a different type of work.
No, but the number's going to grow. The number's going to grow immensely because it's like when I'm talking to these kids, they want money. The money's, and I'm not saying they should come up with another alternative, but the number's going to grow. People dropping out of school, yes, that's something that you're not going to stop regardless of what you do. But those numbers are going to grow significantly because now I'm dropping out because I can get paid.
And I think what's crazy is like, thinking about it on the opposite end, these kids be going to school and don't have no skills when they graduate anyway. And then they can't get a job.
But it's more likely. The more educated you are, the more likely that you'll get a job.
Like I think the illiteracy rate is like climbing. Like more kids can't read now than ever.
But that's the purpose. The purpose of this whole thing, Chris. The purpose of this whole thing is to get more.
I think they have no. I think right now they don't have anything. Like they go into these schools and felons and leaving with nothing.
No, but see, Chris, you're missing the point. The system is not a good system. I'll be the first to say it. Those numbers are going to, and this is me guessing, those numbers are going to double because the kids don't think there's opportunity. They're not thinking in terms of eventually I got to pay rent. I want a car. They're thinking I'm gonna have some money in my pocket and I'm doing it legal. So that number is going to grow up. The problem with it is, Chris, without an education, Devin is right. Some of them will make it, but without education, Chris, how far are you going? Because the competition now with educated people is going to make it tough. Because there's going to be other educated people out there looking for work. It's going to make it tough.
But I think, again, what we're saying is like, if you don't even give them this opportunity to have,
it's not giving them opportunity because they're trying to replace the labor force.
If they don't even have the opportunity to have a job, then what other options do they have?
If it was about an opportunity, they would come up with a real viable program like the work study thing here. They would come with a program that works. It wouldn't force a kid to drop out of school was an opportunity.
Nobody's forcing these kids to drop out of school. And then even the work study thing that was in Philadelphia was unique in so many ways.
But that's what I'm saying. If you
like where they was partnering with, and it's not even sustainable. They can't even do it no more.
They're still doing it.
Not at the level that they were before. Not at the level that they were before.
They're not doing
interviewing kids and giving them internships, saying good job. Now they working at ShopRite.
No,
they working at like camps and
Philadelphia
stuff like
work ready. And I'm not gonna get too much in it because the leadership did go down, but they're still running the program. You can still hire those kids. Just kids can still. Well, you don't hire them. Basically, what the program is funded by the government, so they come work in your place, but they get paid by somebody else, or you get paid to have them there. That's kind of how it works out. So that funding is which is not on them, it's on the government. Those programs being cut. What I'm saying is, if it's going to be a real opportunity, have a program that makes sense. So maybe I use the word force, but Chris, kids, some of these, like I know kids now who work. They got to work now because their mom's a single mom, and kids and mom wants pop laid off some stuff. So they got to work now.
Mm-hmm.
So they have to work. So, but Chris, without an education, they're gonna be stuck on this job forever.
I think what's actually kind of even funny sometimes when we had this conversation. I think we very much look at it from a place of like where we live regionally, where I think like it's people in some of these other places where that's not their lifestyle.
Chris, it's supply and demand. It's all about supply and demand. It's not, they don't care about your lifestyle. For instance, that's why they started putting kids in factories to manufacture. It wasn't about providing opportunities. Cheap labor. I can work a kid for 12 hours a day.
Certain regions in this country are better at certain things than other regions. And we have more skilled people in a certain area, like in the East and the West Coast. Like we got a lot of the tech and a lot of the like people who are finances and stuff like that. In the South and Midwest,
but they still have
farmers.
But they still have industries like restaurants. They still got these lower level jobs, for lack of a better term, that's not paying a lot of money. That's across the country. I don't care where you are, whether Beverly Hills or you.
Cost of living different. You take whatever money you can get.
But now again, that goes back to what I'm saying. You're increasing the numbers of poverty.
How?
Because Chris, they're not making them. They're gonna be poor. They're gonna be legitimately poor.
Or they have nothing.
No, if a kid has a better chance of success if he stays in school than if he drops out. That's statistically, we know that there's some kids who are exception to the rule who make it out. That
But
they
I think
hustle,
we just add in that they're going to drop out. Like,
well, Chris, there's 4-time jobs on a day. What you would do? You can't pick stuff
they're going to drop out. Kids can work weekends. They can work after school.
No, now you're not being real.
How is that not being real? Kids work after school now.
But those not the jobs. Those kids who work after school, you're talking about full-time jobs, Chris. If it's full-time jobs, kids are going to drop out of school to take those jobs.
They don't have to take a full-time job.
But Chris,
kids can't work a full-time job.
Yes, they can. If they change the law, they can.
I think
30 hours would be
half the
full-time.
kids, I can understand both sides. I do think half the kids may have that point. But at the same time, to Chris's point, like I said, that you can work after school. I knew people that did that. You can work. The full 30 doesn't have to be.
There's kids who work after school. You're right. There's kids who work after school, and even some of the kids will tell you they would drop out of school. Even when there's kids who work at Shake Shack or Shack, whatever the name of the place is. The one up hired a bunch of them. Yeah, they would if they could. They would drop out of school to work.
What percentage of kids do you think would drop out of school?
Chris, I couldn't even. It would go up because some of them are driven. They're not forced physically, but poverty. Some of these kids are already living in poverty, So now they don't like going to school. About 50% of the kids I come across don't like school. Probably 60 or 70% think school teaches them absolutely no real skills to be out in the world.
And they just
that's what they say all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But school teaches you discipline. It teaches you to do things that you don't like to do, but you have to do to be successful. You learn that by going to school, those classes. It teaches you it is true. It teaches you critical thinking. Most people, when I'm doing contracts and stuff like that, I do think about when I had to do algebra and stuff, how to figure stuff out in my head. And I learned critical thinking by going to school. Because every subject I had was a great subject, and I do think some of the stuff they teach them in school is probably obsolete. I do think some of the stuff somebody came out and said, and because when I was growing up, that's why they had trade school, so a kid could learn a trade, so he could graduate with a skill. The way things are going now, and AI is slowly taking over everything anyway. Without any type of education, it's going to be hard. It's going to be hard. Now, you take kids who are already thinking about, how can I make money? I got to make money. I don't like going to school. I got a kid who missed 100 days of school. 100 days of school he missed, man. And he's working, he's hustling, but 100 days of school. And the job he has is a nice job, but it's barely paying little minimum wage. It's a nice part-time job. But it's not going to be sustainable if his mom dies and he got to take care of himself. It's not going to be enough. That's what I mean about poverty. It's not going to be enough. If the person you're living with who's been paying your rent and paying all that stuff, it's one thing to chip in and give somebody something, but you got to float the whole boat. Economically, you just can't afford it.
I think most of the people in this country live in poverty. Like, it's just... You
need to come spend some time with me in school, have some conversations with these kids. These kids think totally different. I had a kid tell me Tuesday that if he had $1 million, he hired a manager, he wouldn't count it. He thinks $1 million is gonna last him forever.
I know.
He thinks $1 million. I said, dude, do you read about these people who get ripped off? Oh man, my manager ain't gonna rip me off. I'm gonna hire a manager to manage a manager. And so they whole life.
But I think what's even funny is like
crooked.
Just the idea of introducing them to money early.
But a lot of these kids, they do know money. They may not know the right way, but a lot of these kids do know money. A lot of these kids do know money. Getting them a job is not going to introduce them how to manage money. Getting them there's grown folk who don't know how to manage money.
Not necessarily managing money, but you understand taxes. Like, whoa, this is coming out of my check. Or like, man, like
work ethic.
Yeah, work ethic. Like, man, I'm maybe not be trying to do this the rest of my life.
What are you gonna do with that?
Like when you put me in the kitchen, had me washing dishes, and like at high school, I was like, this ain't for me. Like I'm gonna make sure I do what I need to do in school.
Educated. Yeah. The majority of people who drop out of school don't return. That's statistically known. Mm-hmm. Some do go back to get a GED. They do. But with AI, the way things are moving rapidly in our country right now, and in the world, I shouldn't say our country, in the world right now, you need some level of education to compete. There's exceptions to every rule. Some people just pick stuff up right away. They do. It's just like when they ask you for a bachelor's degree. I know people with a bachelor's degree who dumb in a bag of rocks. But the degree they put in place, why? Because it eliminates a lot of people. Because if I put bachelor's degree, all these other people over can't apply.
But we going backwards on that.
No, but I'm
because we don't require it no more.
No, that's not true. No. There's
a lot of companies now that are making
that's
it.
Not true. There's a
I
lot
did
of
that
jobs,
and like we was doing that at other companies and studying what they do.
We
are doing things now where they're not looking at your degree. They looking
companies,
for entry level positions. A lot of companies are starting to do that.
But there's still a lot of the companies, the well-known companies, and I'm talking about. See, you're talking about entry level. I'm talking about jobs making enough money supply to me. Like where I'm at now,
good jobs. An entry level job at my company is still making like 45.
But everything is not your company. You couldn't live on 45.50 right now.
That's better than the average.
No, but you 45.50 is not a lot of money today, Chris. You say 45.50 like that's a lot of money, and I'm not saying it's a lot of money about it, but it's not.
I'm thinking about it in terms of averages.
But it's still not. But it still does not. It still doesn't. I don't care what the average is. It still does not affect the fact that it's not a lot of money. It's not 45 or 50, maybe 10 years ago was a lot of money. Kids come out of college and looking to make no 45, 50 now. I'm interviewing them, I'm talking to them. Yeah. They're not looking to make no 45, 50. Mm-hmm. As an adult, I don't know what I do to go back to 45, 50. So I think the things are changing.
And that's exactly why these kids that's coming out of college is not getting jobs, because y'all not going to take that 45, 50. When there's somebody who don't got the degree but willing to work twice, 3 times, 4 times.
Most major companies have not gotten away, and I'm one who disagrees with that.
Some of the major companies.
I don't think you have. I don't think you have. I don't think a degree.
Capital One, like.
You're not. But you're talking about sales jobs. Everybody can't sell. But if you go back and look at companies like Comcast, some of the bigger companies, Google, companies like that, they still want you to have a degree. Now, I'm not huge on that, because the degree don't matter your level of intelligence. It doesn't. It just means you're disciplined enough to get a degree. To me, that's all it means. And I've had people say that to me. That's why I went back and got my master's, because people were like, hey, I was doing a job better than people with a master's. And I'm like, yo, what's the difference? I'm doing it. Oh, because that says this person had a discipline and commitment to go back and get it. So I agree with you 100%. It shouldn't be the measuring stick. But for a lot of these big Fortune 500 companies, it's a measurement. And to your point, it's just a perfect example. When I was working for one company, not going to say the name, they used to allow people to sign with DocuSign. To sign the application and stuff. And what they figured out was, if we take that away and make them sign it, we limit a certain amount of people from applying for these jobs. And they did. And that's what they did. And I'm talking about nonprofit. So, because you can sign them a person name, what difference will it make? But I'm just telling you, so these companies put things in place to eliminate the number of resumes they get, eliminate what they think is a certain group of people they don't want to work there. That's not going to change. And what I'm saying is, I use the word forced. They're not going to be physically forced. But if you're talking about a kid who wants to buy sneakers, I keep it simple. I'm watching Devin get sneakers in the sweats all the time, man. He got the latest gear. I can't afford it. My parents can't afford it. I don't like school. I got an opportunity to put some money in my pocket. They're going to take it. And I don't know if I blame them. I met a girl, she works at night, all night long, comes to school, she falls asleep. Her mom got 8 kids. She's one of 8 kids, and her mom don't work.
So if a kid felt like this in general, like, do you think it's the job or even the streets? Like, they're going to choose one or the other?
No, that's not always true.
Not always true, but like
a lot of these kids
some of these people who you think the money is going to get them like that and it's going to drop out. Like,
there's a lot of kids who are trying to do it the right way, but they're poor. They're tired of being poor. And I'm not saying they're making good choices. So, but it's not like every kid that's poor is running out selling drugs. I'm not trying to say that's the case, but I deal with kids who if they could get a job during the day, they wouldn't go to school. They would work. They will work because they want money in their pocket now. Mm-hmm. And we're not talking about a generation of people who thinking 5, 10, 15 years down the line. They thinking now, instant gratification.
By the way, does it specify the hour? Like, does it specify like a certain amount of time?
Yeah,
like I see it's 30 hours per week.
Yeah.
Does it be like you can only work from 3 to such and such?
No, it's any time. And you can even work overnight. So that is an option.
I would imagine that would be in place if they really don't want these kids to drop out of school.
But it's especially for brown people that they want. You can control people by keeping them poor, and they know that. Most of these kids already can't sign their name.
What about the dropout
coming up behind
all these things?
Yeah, they do. Kids are going to drop out. I don't know how you keep kids in school. Do I agree with you? Yes. Do I agree that a lot of schools are failing? Yep. Do I agree that the educational system needs work? And you said it. I agree with that wholeheartedly. But don't you think it's kind of ironic? They're cutting the funding to the education system. They're kind of breaking up the education system as it is, and they're cutting funding. At the same time, you offer an alternative here. You don't think that's the heck of a coincidence? That I'm taking away the education portion, but I'm giving you another way you can survive, not make it off of survive as an alternative. People are gonna take it. And I can't say be a mind reader and say how many people take it, but as somebody that's in school talking to these kids, but high schoolers and middle schoolers, especially high schoolers, they just making it is okay. I got high school seniors, we in April now, still don't know what they're gonna do when they graduate. I'm gonna get a job. You been looking for a job? Nah, man. So I don't have stats, but if you look at the picture, you look at human nature. If you got somebody who's trying to make money, and they try to do it the right way, and you give them opportunity to do it, they don't like where they are right now as far as school and stuff like that, they're gonna take it. I don't say all of them will, but a good number will take them. So the problem is education is getting worse. You're getting a job without education, so you can't go any further. You'll be stuck in an entry-level job or whatever forever, unless somebody with the kindness of their hearts come along, So then what you do? You stuck making minimum wage, man, for 10 years. And I'm not knocking anybody, so please, anybody watching this, man, don't take this the wrong way. But even the cost, most companies give you a cost of living raise that don't even fit the cost of living. Cost of living goes up like 4 or 5%. They give you 2% cost of living raise. So the system itself, the way the system itself is set up, it's just going to make it interesting. It's going to make it interesting, man. So I have purpose. I'm going to track. I am going to start looking for stats and stuff and start tracking. Just take a look at Florida and see how that goes. But Florida itself, they got those opportunities to go to oranges, to pick the oranges and do that kind of stuff.
Because
that's what work for.
What is it? I'm like not trying to make it like I'm knocking the South or Florida, but like
I know what you mean.
Like the education level down there. What is that? Like, you know what I mean? Like, how many people are actually dropping out of school? Or even like right now with this No Child Left Behind, which got started, it's people just in there. They in the building.
Yeah.
Until it's time to get a degree.
Yep.
And then they still ended up doing the same thing anyway, going to that same job.
Yeah. But see, that's not true. Then you typecasting the whole group of people. Yeah, there's some people. There's some people. There's some people who do that. But there are some people who get their education and they do better.
Yeah.
Everybody in the system is not going to get out and take the same. There's some people who get to a certain point in life and say, you know what, the light comes on, I can do better.
Yes.
So, but now you're not even giving them an opportunity because now how you going to compete without a high school diploma?
You do have an opportunity.
Take the degree off.
You do have an opportunity.
How?
You're choosing to either, and even like you already have school there already.
You didn't hear where I said though.
Right? You already have school there already.
If you in poverty, Chris, and you barely making it, and you got and I'm talking to these kids, and they got a chance to actually make some money legally. They're not thinking 5 years down the road that I got to get my own place. No, they're thinking, okay, I can make some money now. So I can give my mom a little money. I can buy some things. I can do this. So that's what they're thinking.
The money's off the table. Why are they not taking advantage of the schooling right now?
And that's who said they weren't. You talking about a small percentage. A lot of kids.
So then we're talking about two different people. Then
no, we're not talking.
I'm talking about the kids.
No, we're not talking. But that's not just for those. That's for everybody. It'd be different if they came along and said, okay, you kids are not making it in school. We got a special program for you. No, that's for any kid.
Exactly.
And they changed it so the kid would work overnight. One, they're gonna pay them less. They're not paying. That kid's not getting any benefits. The kid's not gonna make top dollar. It's set up for them to capitalists to make more money. That's what it's all about.
Making a choice.
That's what it's all about.
Making a choice.
No, but see, it's not just as simple as making a choice. Sometimes you gotta look at the big picture, man. And some people, I'm not saying it's the right choice, but some people make choices out of emotion, and they're desperate. It doesn't make it the right choice. Now, because that don't mean you take advantage of somebody who's probably still emotionally immature, and parents maybe not in the greatest spot. So what you gonna? So now you got him or her who get in this position, and maybe they don't have a wherewithal to fight to overcome. So now you got generations of poverty all over again. Yeah, and we just started in our community. We I'm not gonna say we broke it, but we did a good job of turning the trend and sitting right here at this table. I grew up in North Philly. You didn't have to grow up in North Philly. So it's all about making it better for the next generation, which it makes it increasingly more difficult if you're not educated, because you're talking about And I'll say Devin's point. Hopefully, some will choose to go to school doing the damn work because they're making it so that because now kids can't work overnight, so they'll be able to work overnight. Yeah, hopefully they will choose that or part-time overnight. They will. Hopefully, more of them will take it as a part-time job. But kids I know and kids I talk to, you hear from them, they will take the full-time job. They will take the full-time job. They see, and I'm not saying they're wrong.
And
they
I'm
see
guessing,
no reason. They see no
reason
to go to school.
There's probably a lot of kids that are not like those kids that you talk
They
to.
see no. Chris, but I'm in 3 different areas, and some of the kids, and they say the same thing. They say, Chris, that mentality is not just here; it's across the country.
I'm just culturally the South is different,
but that doesn't change the mentality. The South, you're talking about culturally. There's kids in everywhere saying the same thing.
If I grew up in a farming area versus somewhere where it's
but that has nothing to do with
that's
education
is different. Like these things are not the same.
Education is across the country, Chris. Unless you out here somewhere. But inner city education is pretty much the same across the country, and even out here, kids are saying,
not everywhere is the inner city.
But who do you think those jobs are targeted for, Chris? Those jobs they're not targeting people with money. That stuff is targeted for poor people.
There are rural areas that not everywhere is the inner city.
Those jobs are not targeting for people who kids live in Beverly Hills and the finer
rural area. We're talking about the boonies, like Mansfield, like Bloomsburg, like areas like that. I mean, Pennsylvania is more of places like that than the city or urban areas.
Chris, even if you take rural and urban, you're talking about complexion. There's not a lot of opportunities in rural, and that's why they're trying to get out of there. That's why a lot of them do to try to get out of there.
And a lot of them don't, and that's why I'm like,
but they're not. But at 14 years, but then it's an opportunity. What, you stuck on a farm the rest of your life?
I have something to do.
Because
it's funny because I know people who grew up in areas like that. They be drug ridden. People don't leave. Like they feel like they don't have nothing to do.
Still learn the skills to farm to maybe one day even.
The farming is decreasing. But farming has become, unfortunately, the way everything is going now is becoming less and less and less. Mm-hmm. It's not like back in the day where it was this big thing. Is even in Jersey, farms are not as widespread as they used to be.
So is it specifically farm jobs?
Well, no. He just mentioned farm jobs. They just, in general, what they said was they want to lower it. My point was they're not talking about grooming these kids for tech jobs. You don't lower the age. You don't lower the age of working group people unless you try to create another group of working class. That's it. That's the only. You don't do it. You're not doing it because I care about you, because they don't. They're creating another group of working class. They're not creating a group of working class to go work in corporate America. They're not. They got to figure out a way to take all these people that's being deported, all those jobs, whether it's farming, whether it's restaurant. They got to have a workforce. They got to have a workforce.
People would say that was the early idea of the Rockefellers with the whole premise of school anyway, was to indoctrinate people to be able to work. So it's just like that. I don't know. That's what we're all pretty much seeming like we're all here to do anyway. At this point, is go to school, find your way, get a job.
No, that's not true. It's not just about everybody should have a foundational education. College is not the answer to everybody, and I get that. I'm not saying, but everybody needs to have a fundamental education. Every job I know says you got to have at least a high school diploma. Every job I know says you got to. Now there may be some exceptions I just don't know about. But every job I look at, the minimum is a high school diploma. Some people say high school diploma plus experience. A lot of people ask for associate's degrees or bachelor's degrees. I know you used to be a state trooper. I think now state trooper is a bachelor.
They lower
I know to be a cop. It has to be. Well, no, they didn't used to. They raised the standards for state troopers because you used to be able to do it with a high school diploma. I knew a bunch of them. And then they raised it because a lot of us was getting in it, so they changed it to the degree. So what's going to be different? I don't see these people hiring 14-year-olds to work in all these different places. I don't. I see you got a group of people. I got this class work that I need to get done. I know these people will do it. Because many 30-year-olds ain't gonna go out there and do it. Your generation ain't gonna go out there and do it.
When has there ever been a point in time where 14-year-olds or 15, 16 were able to walk into these places and work for
that's why
we always worked in working hard.
But that's why they changed the child labor laws, Chris, because these kids they were taking these dead-end jobs and they weren't doing anywhere in life. They were stuck in these factories. They were stuck in it. Well, no, that's why they put the labor laws in place, Chris, at least to give the kids a chance, an opportunity. That's why the laws were put in place. So they wouldn't be stuck working in a factory for 12 hours a day and places where
I'm talking about the idea, the type of job you can get at that age of.
But that's the job they were getting.
All you can do.
That's
really all you can do.
But that's the job. They know they were hiring. If I got a factory,
what other opportunity did I get?
If I got a factory, and I got a chance to hire a 16-year-old who I can pay minimum wage, no benefits to, who's not qualified, so they probably get hurt different things which happens. Or Devin, who now I got to pay because he has bills, he has responsibilities. I'm saving money, and this capitalism is about saving money. I'm lowering my overhead. Because I got these 16-year-olds or 14-year-olds out here who I don't, who now can work these hours. They can work the overnight shift, which I had to pay Devin time and a half for.
So it's only certain jobs that you can
do. But it doesn't. Is okay. What job you tell me that you think at 14 you want to drop out and get?
I don't think you could drop out and get any job at 14. I think you.
But that's what they're saying. You can. They're saying in Florida. They're saying you can.
Nobody's saying you need to drop out.
I didn't say you need to drop out. I said you can. I didn't say you need to drop out.
Anyone can drop out right now.
But you can't get a job. But you can't get a job. It's two different things. You can't get a job now. If you drop out at 14, nobody can hire you legally. They can't. If you're 14 years old, you're 16-year-old working papers. You cannot work overnight. You can't. It's against the law. It's not about whether you want to or not. You can't. There are certain laws that says kids certain ages just can't do this.
Mm-hmm.
They put it in place because you had kids, and I'm exaggerating because we don't do that now, but you had kids going into the mines. You had kids doing jobs that grown folk wouldn't do. And they were paying them less money. Nike was notorious for that till they got in trouble. Them sneakers that Michael Jordan, everybody, they had kids over there making 50 cents an hour, man, in sweatshops. All they did was sew all day long.
In China?
All day, yeah. I'm just saying, all day. That's all they did. So they passed, and even here in this country, that's why they passed it. In the manufacturing days, they were doing that. They were hiring these kids to work these crazy jobs. So what happened is now they had the people coming to the country looking for a job. The non-Americans, I don't want to call them foreigners, they take those jobs. They're not taking them from anybody. They take the jobs because America, we don't work those jobs. So all I'm saying is there has to be a balance. To some people, yeah, but for a lot of people, it's about the money. And I can't say I blame them because if I'm in a house and I got a bunch of siblings and I'm barely making it, I'm desperate. I'm not sitting here thinking, well, if I get my education, I got a better chance to make it. Even though my mom is probably telling me, stay in school, because I don't want you to be like me. I got a better chance to make it. I'm thinking like, I don't get to pay a new pair of sneakers. Devin going up in here with new runs every week.
It's survival. Do what you got to do right now.
No, but it's not always about right now. That's what's wrong with the world we live in right now. Some things are right now. Some things you got to, but you got to start thinking, Chris, about if I do this, I have ramifications. It can't be. You got to think about it. And that's why so many people in jail right now, because you know what? If I sell
nobody's telling you to quit.
No, I'm just saying, if I sell these drugs to death, I'm gonna have this money right now. They ain't thinking about what if I get caught.
Nobody's telling kids to quit.
They're not thinking about kids I'm talking to. You got a record now. Oh, I didn't think about that. Well, it was fun until I got caught. Now I got a record. They don't think 5-10 years down. They don't. I don't know why. They don't. Part of it is like you said, No Child Left Behind was probably the worst thing ever because everybody got passed. Everybody got passed. But that's why you have what you have now. I got 24-year-olds who work for me, man, they're very nice people, but they're not the brightest bulbs in the pack, man. I deal with adults who didn't take school seriously now, who never always regress because now I'm trying to compete. I'm trying to compete on a regular job, and Devin can write, he can read effectively, man. He can do, I'm struggling with both those things. I want to live in a nice neighborhood. I want to drive a nice car, but I can't because I'm struggling with these things because I didn't get educated. And I'm not talking about college or even technical school. Although you need the skill to compete. So I'll just say,
I almost feel like the education is a whole separate issue of its own.
It is, but it's also, and I blame parents is what you make it because your kid can be in a school, but your kid can still learn. And parents got to get more involved. But you're dealing with a generation of parents who don't appreciate or who don't understand the value of education, and they don't support it. So I agree. Our educational system, parenting, a lot that goes into it. But I also think that you got to start thinking beyond. I mean, we're in a situation now because we look at something at face value and we never look at the long-term impact, and we don't. And we got to start thinking about it, man. If this government, America, and I'm not bashing America, has never been that kind to somebody. They're just going to give them something for nothing. It don't work like that. It's never worked like that. Believe me, they ain't sit up there saying we're going to lower the age for these kids to work because we want to help them out. No. How can we create another labor force? Hey, this is what we're going to do. We don't care where labor force comes from. If they come, they come. And they all ain't going to go work at Disney.
I mean, it's just crazy to me, too. It's like, because I know it's a bunch of people. Again, economy, how that's moving, inflation, people struggling to buy food and like stuff, and like people just need more probably money to even come into the house, and it's like hard to tell somebody to be like, yo, don't worry about tonight. Think about 5 years from now. Like
no, you missing the whole point. You missing the whole point.
I'm just saying, no, you saying not, like don't worry about like
because I said no, that's not what I said. What I said, Chris, you always got to consider about the ramifications. Some things you can say I'm gonna take care of tonight, but some things you gotta ask yourself: if I do this now, what's gonna be long term? Because if I do this now and I eat for the night, and now I get arrested, I can't get a job. I'm screwed for the rest of my life.
I mean, I think we talking about the idea of working.
No, I'm going about what you just said about telling.
I never said anything about something like.
You said that I can't tell somebody don't worry about tonight because I got to eat tonight. No, what I'm saying is
like don't worry about working that right now because of your education.
You got to think about the long term effects of it.
What if I could do both? Like, what if I like that's not? There's people out there who can, and not everybody can. I'm not talking about like just in this generalization where everybody is going to either work and drop out of school or everybody can do both. Like, of course, it's going to be like in betweens of people who. Not able to do that.
I want to do more research because I highly doubt that they're going to have like there has to be some type of stipulation. You can't just take kids out of like, oh, you can't go to school.
That's not what I said. That's what it sounds like. No. They like Chris said, they will have an option. You're not going to tell them they can't go to school, but if it's a full-time job, you got to work. You work the job they offer you. I said kids will take that. I didn't say they have to. Just like they said you can work overnight. There's going to be some kids who may try to go to school and work overnight. So that they're all distinct possibilities. But knowing what I know, the kids I deal with, and I don't deal with every kid, but enough of them, money is an issue for this generation, man. They like money.
It's only for homeschool kids.
They like money. And I'm not knocking it.
Oh, it's not for homeschool kids?
Well, they're trying to get it for everybody. They're trying to get this thing passed. And Florida's always the test state. You do one thing, you do another, and you gradually go move on and on. And because some people do think it's a good idea. Some people don't think it's a good idea. Just like No Child Left Behind. A bunch of people thought it was a great idea.
I see that working for homeschool kids though. Actually,
they need to get out the house.
But it's not. But see, it's not just. This is a test thing. It's like the Roe versus Wade. Trump tested to see if I can get the Supreme Court to overturn something. So in his mind now, he can do that now. You throw stuff out there to set precedent to see if this works, and if it works, then you blow it up. If you throw stuff out there and then you blow it up and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, you test it. And kids can work overnight and different things like that. Kids don't, 14, 15-year-old kids.
It's not during the school year.
So it's just no. I don't know what you're reading, but the bill they put out that they're trying to get passed is for any time and it's overnight. The biggest thing is they're trying to get overnight because, like you said, Devin, they do talk about that. They are trying to get it passed for kids to be able to work overnight. It changes everything. And I'm just saying, I know, and there's some people who I get it or are desperate. But I also know you got to find a balance, man, because like working at the school, that's an excellent point. I don't have a problem with that. But you still, you need some type of education. I'm not saying that college is not for everybody. I agree, but the fundamental basics that you get in education, you still need how to read, how to write, how to count, how to think critically, just how to problem solve. That's all the stuff you learn being in school. Now, I can't get into how you feel about geometry and other things because look, I had geometry. I'm never going to use it again in life. I forget what class the kid told me he was taking. They're reading a book about some young Spanish girl. And I agree with them. That has nothing to do with what you do the rest of your life. I agree with them wholeheartedly.
Art.
But getting the job out of a high school diploma is just, and we live in a society now where they hold that against you. They'll take money off the box, man. Well, this is we pay our people with college degrees, or this is we pay our people with that. That impacts your earning potential. And again, college is not for everybody. Trade school is not for everybody. And there are some successful people who didn't go to either. I get that. But everybody's not LeBron James, man. He's gonna walk into the league and be a great. I know you didn't say that, but everybody's not Bill Gates. you know, or even Elon Musk, because some people named them where they're going to be fortunate enough to invent them. I just think, you know, we need to look at stuff and look at the big picture, man, before we just start, oh, that sounds good, and let's just jump right into it. You know, we do, and see, for you, for long-term effects is, you know, those folk won't be in a position to run a country.
Do you think more people dropped out of school when they started letting us work, like kids work at 16, like 15, 16?
They didn't go to school. That was the problem, because the kids weren't going to school. They had them working all the time.
So they dropped out.
They didn't drop out. They didn't go to school. They had these kids. They were going. So they were old enough to work. I guess you get someone dropped out, but they were going into these factories. That's why they changed the labor laws, because all these kids were in the factories and not going to school.
I just like the one thing is,
and they were producing kids who didn't go to school, living in the factory. So you had these
kids going to drop out.
You had these ghettos being birthed. Yeah, but it's not. But the numbers change. I hear you when you say kids, and I do agree. I do agree. Kids are going to drop out regardless. But those numbers, I couldn't tell you percentage-wise, but I can guarantee the number will probably almost double. Whether we think it's a good idea, not a good idea, the number's going to go up fast.
They might be interested in, like, man, how many of those
and
kids
every time
passing?
But you don't understand. Every time the group of people who are in poverty increase, Chris, is more. It puts some more burden on other people, because somebody got to pay for this. Somebody got to pay for these programs. And the upper class don't. The middle class does. The middle class does. So you mean they drop out? Probably they need assistance, and I think, you know, everybody should help out with the have-nots. I am for that. But I'm saying somebody pays for that. You know, somebody got to pick up the bill for that, man.
But for them,
for the programs that they need, because they're working, because they're under poverty, not making enough money, so they got to subsidize this and subsidize that. You know, and it's tough. Look. We talk about this all the time, man.
That may be a contributor to like some of the but I think like the poverty it starts with the education, period. Like not even having access to a job or something. Like just the education that people are getting in these areas are terrible. And then even how we show up to get that education is terrible. So I think that's where it's like, yeah, I understand and hear the idea of like, some of these kids may be losing out on the opportunity of education because they go and chase the bag or chase money, but not enough of them is chasing education in that way.
But you can't say that. You say you will be. I mean, yeah, there's some who not, but you say not enough of them.
But you can say we just saw this. It's a story we just was talking about a couple weeks ago where this girl graduated. This girl graduated and can't read or write.
It was two of them, but we talked about.
I'm just saying from a general the numbers are out there. We can look at that.
Like, look at the numbers. You say there's enough of them. What's enough of them? Who determines enough of them?
It's crazy. 40 to 60% of kids between a certain age that can't read or write is a lot.
I'm not saying that the education system is perfect. I'm not saying that.
That's a
lot. You just give up on a person. A kid who's in that bracket and say what you do. Like they build in prisons based on third grade. We do the same thing.
I think give up on the person is just building the prison. I think giving them an opportunity to pick up work.
That's not how you condemning somebody to a life of poverty, man. Yo, what are you talking about?
Condemning them is not giving them an opportunity to do anything.
Chris, given how much of an opportunity, that's not a real opportunity, man. If it was a real opportunity, they would make it a work study. If it was a real opportunity, they would have thought of this long before the immigrants left. If they were so eager to do this, they wouldn't be doing it now because of labor force. They would have did this long before that. Years ago, they would have had that in place. Okay,
I just got to give you an opportunity.
No, I'm just saying, if they wanted, if this was about opportunity, this would happen years ago. Years ago, somebody would have sat down and said, we know we got kids who need help, let's put some programs in place so they can work and go to school and earn some money.
That's hard to say that, because
it's not hard to say that
because the Democrats was in office years ago.
And it's a political thing. I never mentioned Republican or Democrat. I never said that. I said politicians. If any politician wanted them from the heart,
Republican, this is the Republican thing, though. That's one, and we can say that.
I perfectly didn't say that because I know on both sides I was jacked up. Exactly. I didn't blame the Republicans. I said Florida. Mm-hmm. I didn't blame the Republicans. I said they're trying to replace the workforce. And I didn't turn to any political party. I didn't say this, that. I purposely did not say that because they're less than saints on both sides of the aisle.
And you start calling them both.
So what I'm saying is, if anybody, Republican, Green Room, whatever, Democrat, Libertarian, if they really from the heart want to have a program or opportunity, they would not wait until the workforce. They would have did this. They would have done this a while ago. This ain't the first time this conversation comes to kids. If it was really about providing opportunities, they would have came up with this years ago. Either side would have came up with it. Either side.
Who was like thinking about that?
I feel like the way it's current, if it is the way I have to do more research, but the way it's currently set up, if it only is during the summer and for
do your research. I don't see nothing wrong. Do your research because the original bill they were trying to pass it wasn't just for the summer. They were trying to I'm telling you the bill, you're mine.
NPR is
and you're the same guy.
NPR is a credited source.
When the bill was being presented, and you read your credible source, everybody has a version of it. That's what they're trying to do. They got to replace the workforce. Their workforce is not only need to be replaced in the summertime, wintertime, and everything else. It needs to be replenished. You can't just dismiss a workforce and just think life is going to continue as it is. It doesn't. It's not going to happen like that. When you lose workforce, you got to replace it, which is why our slavery came into play. They needed people to do the work. Indentured service, people who wanted to come to this country and they need a labor force. You come over, I'll pay your passage. You work off what I spent to get you here, and then you're free. That's capitalism been working like that forever. You got to replace the workforce, Chris. And it's not just a summer workforce. It's not just a summer workforce, man. People find out.
I think what's funny about that is that we're talking about like having to I guess the idea of President Mind to allow kids to go to school and like still do these things is like that makes sense if it's like a summer thing. Maybe we should look into it a little bit more and find out. But like if it's just a summer thing, like
and this is what I'm talking about, how we don't look down the road. We look at the immediate thing and we don't look at the big picture. The big picture is there's a whole workforce that needs to be replaced. It's not just a summertime workforce. It's a whole workforce that needs to be replaced. How do you replace it? How do how Americans don't typically take those jobs anyway. American adults don't. You just said it yourself. They cringe their nose up because they want to make a certain amount of money. But you got to replace the workforce. You have to. You cannot just deport a whole workforce or have them scared to come to work and think that industry's going to continue to flourish. It's not. And the farmers are saying that people are scared to come to work. ICE just snatched somebody off the street last week. We're walking down the street in New York, man. They just, snatched off the street. They got it on camera, man. People are afraid. They're not going to work. They're not taking, they're not taking these jobs. They're not doing these things, and it's going to have a ripple effect. Because if we're not picking avocados and oranges and all that stuff, so that means fewer are going to come into the market. It means the price is going to go up, which means a lot of crops are going to perish, which means a lot of farmers, which are most of them, not most of them, the ones you get on TV, they're already in debt, they're already struggling. It's going to be worse. So where's that workforce going to come from? To me, that's why you lower the age. That's why you lower the age, because you got to create a whole nother workforce. Because if you really felt like, man, I want to do, and these politicians, both sides, I've been in office a long time. They know the state of this country. So if they really felt like we want to create an opportunity, make it a real opportunity. Like Devin said, set it up so they could, like they used to have work study. I don't know if they still have. I know when I was in high school, they had work study. We either work, you went to school, academics in the morning, then we had shop in the afternoon. Whenever you had shop, you can get a job. You can go out and work, and then, you go to school, and whatever time you can go get a job for those 4 hours. And people did it. People did it. That's creating opportunities. That's creating opportunities, man. Still urging and encouraging people to get their education, because college ain't the answer for everybody. Trade school ain't the answer, but you got to have at least a baseline level of education. I see too many people who don't have it, and I watch how they struggle in less than stellar jobs. And it's most of them in our community. Most of them in our community, man. So now what happens is, and poverty becomes a generational thing. Because I don't buy your education, so I went to work when I was 14. You going to work when you 14. So
life is choices and consequences.
I think that's what we have to be. That's exactly what I said. That's why you got to think about the repercussions. Some things you can do with instant gratification. But some things you got to think about. If I do this now, am I willing to pay for it like this later? We ain't gonna get to another topic. We spent the whole show on this topic, man. We ain't talking about anything else. We still talking about
education.
Still, you talking about Anthony Edwards. You hear about that stuff?
Yeah, I heard about that. Huh?
You pay this child support up to the kid's 18 years old. That's nice to be able to do that.
It's cool to be able to do that. They should have.
I think
it's problems on both sides.
Put that down payment on that child support, all 18.
Because the child should be able to live off that if it's strictly for the child.
5,
at the same time, you're leaving that child to an advantage because it's not going to have the father in the life. But at the same time, she's 38.
He didn't want to be the father.
He said that. She's 38. He's 24. Sounds very predatory in my opinion.
She just clearly wanted the check. She got that $1 million check.
You don't think he should have been smarter?
Yeah, he definitely should have been.
You know who you are, and you got a girlfriend with a baby the same age. You know who you are. You're 24. You're a millionaire. You know your target.
That's why I said both sides.
I don't feel bad. I don't feel bad.
I'm sure she knew he had a girlfriend, and I'm sure
somebody on the jiu-jitsu side figured out that she needs $5,000.
Don't feel bad for Zion.
Somebody on the jiu-jitsu side figured out that she needs $5,000 a month.
Yeah.
I mean, it's nice to write a check for $1,080,000 and say I'm done until the child's 18. But that's only if the child goes to college. You got to pay for college. Well, you pay not for college. You got to pay for the kid until he graduates.
Hey, you might as well start that. What is it, $529 or something?
Them jeans, I'm sure she'll get a.
But you don't have to pay for the. I mean,
sit it in there, let it grow.
See, that's the show between itself because how many kids are growing up without a dad, man?
Yeah, that's the part.
That's the biggest. That's the argument. That not an argument, but it's a big discussion around Nick Cannon because he got all these kids, and he thinks and Cam Newton, they have a bunch of kids, and they think because they provide for them financially, that that's what's needed.
That's the precedent. That's it.
Right. That's actually a good point.
That's it.
That is actually the precedent that's set. Like even with this situation here, court-ordered child support. No, it ain't court-ordered to spend time with your child.
Because you can easily do that. They don't. You can do that.
They don't do that.
You could get me community service.
They say
I've been saying that.
I've
been saying that for decades. That they don't order you to spend time. Is about the money, and it's about two facets of the money. It's money to pay them, and it's money to keep them off the system, so the system don't have to pay for them.
But then, I mean, again, not every woman in every situation, but this one in particular, they kind of almost make it about the money, like every time.
Because that is, I'm like Devin. That's $60,000 a year.
Time. It's like
that's I'm like Devin. Like, yo, man.
It's kind of disturbing, honestly.
You got to be smarter.
You know who you are. He's young. You probably ain't got nobody around him. Just tell him, like, bro, relax. Like, I'm
listening to much future.
Wrap it up. Like, man, you gonna have to split this.
Yeah.
Like, bro, relax. He do listen to too much future. Watching Nick Cannon, man, and like Cam Newton, is it gonna get you in trouble?
Well, it's kind of funny because there's a podcast I'm supposed to be jumping on after this, and they're gonna be talking about that tonight, man. But that's been a big discussion. I didn't see it because apparently there was a show with Cam Newton and Nick Cannon and this renowned psychiatrist on it, and that's
she ain't no real doctor.
She getting some flack right now too.
I didn't see it. I said I have to see it. I didn't see it.
First she came out and said I got 5 degrees. Then she came out later and said I got 4 degrees.
I didn't see the whole clip, but
I didn't see any of it. I just think that everybody's talking about it.
She said some good things, but she's been contradicting herself, and she just came out and so much for patient, confidentiality. She came out and was talking about one of the stars that reached out to her.
And she'll talk about Cam Newton. She'll talk about all
the stuff that they talked about. Like,
but won't say nothing about 50 Cent.
What they got to do with it?
What 50 Cent do?
Cause she likes 50 Cent. That's why.
Oh,
50 Cent is the same. He got tons of kids. Different baby moms.
But that was before he got on.
Anyway,
but like, how can you go
excuse the behavior?
That's another. I didn't see it. I just they were talking about it, and they were talking about how I guess it was the point where they were saying how they're good dads because they take care of the physical needs of their kids. Their kids, they live in a nice house. They're not missing the being. But there's something about having a father present that just makes a difference. That's just my opinion.
Be interested to know what they.
Has there ever been like
upbringings is like
just someone like, you know what? I don't need that much money, but you gotta be there. Have they ever said that in court?
The system is not set up like that. I've been saying that for decades. They will tell you to spend the money, but they never tell you to spend your time.
Cool. Man. Well, another great episode. Appreciate y'all locking in with us. Above Average Black Man. I know we started out a little slow with the technical difficulties, but another great episode. Thank you all. Tune in next week.
Like, follow, subscribe, share. I missed that part in the beginning.
And I was there to say it for him. Appreciate y'all. Have a great rest of your week. Stay blessed.
So Devin, we're gonna